Dude, we are back.
Back, man.
All right, so new location, new look that we're playing with.
We're working on it.
Yeah,
it's a blank slate.
Yeah, I threw away so much shit. Man, there's a lot to catch up on. But right off the bat, this new episode, this first one, is gonna be about race because I get a lot of messages about obviously like, hey man, you were in the special operations community. You're out here and you know you help run this training company. You go do this, you go do that, and you know unless you're blind, I'm one of the few in each little world, right?
Yeah.
And dudes always ask me like, hey, do you get any pushback? Have you done this? Have you done that? And I've always messaged them my honest experience, right? But before we get to all that, damn, dude, what was the last episode?
I should probably have that answer, but YouTube will.
I know, dude. I fucking.
We're coming close to 20.
No, but who or what was the last?
It was Larissa.
Larissa was the last one, right?
Yeah. And I think that might have been like 17.
And when was that?
I'm gonna find out right now.
But anyways, so since then, we put a pause. First, it was the place we were at. You know, it's just sometimes our schedules weren't lining up, and then you know, training just took over life, and fuck, man. But now we're back, and I there's a shitload of guests that want to come on. Ed Manifesto talked about it, and he says August he's gonna come and kick it.
Perfect.
So for sure, have him on. My boy Eric, who's right now a registered dietitian, and before that,
Grunt Grub.
Yeah, he was a Marine. Some fighters, some of the boys. And, you know, freaking Mike did a podcast. I'm not sure if you saw it.
I didn't see that yet.
Michael Dowd, yeah. And I don't know. I never asked him or about, hey, man, you want to go do podcasts? Because I didn't know if that was his thing.
Yeah.
Not to mention he would always make fun of me about social media. But now he's
in it.
He's in it.
Yeah.
And he's actually has the bigger following than all of us now.
Everyone wants to know about Mike.
Yeah. But fuck, dude, what else is...
This will be episode 17, by the way.
Episode 17?
Yeah.
Since then, we went to go kick it with George Perez.
That was dope. Yeah.
Right? What other podcast did we go do?
I feel like you did with Emo Brown.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna work that. We're still working on the OG pumpkin beer.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. But anyways, man, we'll just dive into it. Let's just dive into it. And I feel like the vast majority of people in this community, and when I say community, I mean, you know, the veterans, law enforcement, and you can even throw martial arts in there, but not so much that. It's mostly in these people who have these companies who are not white. I feel like they don't talk about or want to talk about touch race because the vast majority of customers are who? White people.
There
right?
you go. Yeah.
And the thing is, I have conversations with a lot of these people offline, right? And we share experiences and stuff like that. And so today, this is my experience, right? And experiences vary. And fuck, where do I even start with this? So people will message me like, hey, you know,
if everyone doesn't know, you're Mexican.
Yeah.
First gen.
Yep.
Yeah.
First generation, first one to be born here. And you know what, man? Dude, growing up, I thought all Mexicans were illegal. I thought, because in school, we never really covered Mexican history that's related to this country. If I can remember correctly, and maybe school has changed, right? What they teach, but I'm
pretty sure it's changed what they teach now.
It was people came here, right? They started a couple colonies.
Thanksgiving.
Yep, and then they spread to the west. They had slaves, and then there was a civil war, and then there was World War One, World War Two, then the civil rights movement, and now we're here. So those were the major things that they covered, right? So growing up, all I ever saw in the news was Mexicans going over the border, Mexicans doing this, Mexicans doing that. So if you're only taught certain things and you see certain things online, or not, online wasn't a thing back then, but you see something in the news. Well, I literally thought there was a border and Mexicans just kept coming up, right? I'm first gen. My grandparents, my mom and dad, they're working. They don't have fucking time to sit us down and give us a history on what's actually been going on in this land for the last couple hundred years, right? So I joined the military, and I never really got to kick it with Mexicans, right? Like,
Where was your base at?
My base was in Washington, right?
So from Garden Grove, Santa Ana, I've never
been out of the country. I mean,
you went back to Mexico.
Yep.
Just to visit or live a little bit, and then came back.
Yep.
But basically never left California, Southern California.
Never.
So then you enlist and
you
get
basic
thrown
training
in a fucking bus.
Yeah.
And then in a plane.
And next thing you know, I'm in Missouri. Never been there. I'm at Missouri, and then I get stationed in Washington, and where they're like Hispanics or like Latinos or whatever word people like to associate with. I mean, there was Puerto Ricans.
Yeah. I'm sure you heard of a Lopez somewhere.
Yeah. Then there was Dominicans, but like that's not the same Spanish. That's not the same, culture. It's not the same way of life. It's somewhat similar, but not, right? And then eventually, I made it into the special operations community, and I got stationed in Georgia, right? There's a few Mexicans there, but not really. Mostly white people from what I saw, black people. So it was funny. English was not my first language. And then now I spent almost 8 years in the military not really speaking Spanish, to the point where now it's reverse. I'm better at speaking English than I am speaking Spanish. So I get out with all these things that have happened or not happened. And I remember I went to a Marine Corps birthday event, right? The Marine Corps really does care about their birthday. And this is now my first year being a veteran. And I go, and my friend's a Marine. He's like, hey, come over here. We're going to go to this bar. It's a Marine Corps birthday. And bro, I'd never seen so many Mexicans ever. Like with like veteran attire stuff, right? And I was like, dude, and my friend's white. And he's like, dude, he's like, what, you weren't stationed with a bunch of Mexicans? I was like, no, bro, I joined, and there wasn't a lot of us in my company, and the ones that were there, like, they weren't even in my platoon or so like I would see them but never really talk to them. And then at the special operations community, the vast majority of people in there are not Mexican, they're white. So when I told him that, I was like, bro, and he's like, and then that whole group that we were with, he was like, bro, he's like, the running joke is that it's not the United States Marine Corps, it's the United States Mexican Corps. Because, dude, and then they would just name of how many Mexicans there were in each of them, because it was like a group of like 8 of us, right? Yeah. Of how many Mexicans, and most of them were all Marines. I was the only Army guy there. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's not my experience. That's why I'm not fast forwarding through my career, but I just wanted to make that point. Like, right then and there, I was like, oh shit, dude, like, people have different experiences in the military, right? Yeah. And in growing up. So then I started going into social media, and then people started asking these questions like, hey, man, like, how did people treat you about your background and about your race, right? And they don't really comment that. And I always find that interesting, that that they don't people don't comment. They would send me a private message and they want the answer, and I'm open about it, right? And the reason why I wanted to talk about race is because like now I have some friends who are white and they're like, oh, I oppress people or whatever, and because they say this and they say that, and I see that it frustrates them, right? And because they're online, they're treated a certain way. I'm not sure if they have been treated in person, because the white man right now is the bad guy, so they're actually being treated a certain way.
Yeah.
But I like to, and I might be wrong, but the chances are high that they're not. They're not getting pulled over out of the car for being white. They're not being told this and this and that in person. All these actions aren't happening, and if they are, again, these are my friends, right? They haven't told me. They just keep saying that they hate seeing this stuff online. They hate seeing this, right? So all this stuff has been coming up, and then all the DMs and about how is it to be brown here, doing this and doing that, and I'm like, all right, well, fuck, I'll do the episode, and then I'll just tell people, go to this episode, and then if you have any questions, hit me up, instead of having these long conversations in the messages and typing away all day, and it's not like I already don't spend enough time on my phone. I don't need to spend even more time. So, dude, in the military, I'll go to the military. In the military, yeah, man, like there's racism, right? But not everybody is that way. I remember that there was a guy, and for the people who've already listened to the podcast, you're gonna hear the story again. But there was a dude who was like, "Hey, man, for a Mexican, you're not that bad." And after a while, I knew he wasn't joking around, and one day he found his dad dead, right? So I know he's processing his dad's death, and he told me, "Hey, you know how I would tell you for a Mexican you're not bad?" So I wasn't really joking, and I was like, "I know, man, I figured." And he's like, "I love my dad, but he taught me that all Mexicans are coming here, they're raping this country, and they're taking everything away."
Yeah.
And dude,
took our jobs.
Yeah, and they're like clear, and he was like, and clearly you're not doing that. You're like the hardest working dude I know. That's, and then another time I remember we were in Iraq, and one of the guys, I said, how I said there's not that many Mexicans around me. Well, there was this one guy who was getting his citizenship because he joined the military, and he was in a different platoon. I think his name was Ivan. I forget his last name, but Ivan, if I remember correctly, was going to get his papers, or there was going to be a ceremony, and we were just leaving Iraq, right? For us, the deployment's over. Now we're in this huge ass base with the showers, internet, and like little game rooms and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go work out, and then I'll make it in time to go support, right? And as I remember, as I turned the corner to where the location where the ceremony is going to be, there's like a group of like 100 people, 150 people, and the biggest group, were brown, brown people, right? And then the second biggest group were white people, and then there was a few blacks, a few Asian. And I remember, and then I found my platoon, and I remember thinking like, hey man, and I pointed, I was like, why are they there? They being black, Asian, and white people, right? And then he's like, oh, and then one of them jokingly was like, oh, what, you thought Mexicans were the only illegal ones here? And I was like, yeah, motherfucker. Like,
that's what it's painted out to be, right?
That's all I ever see. That's all I ever saw growing up. That is all I ever saw as a child. Like, why would I not think different? And as I told them that, each one being from different parts of this country, we're like, oh, there's a community of Germans, and then like, or a community of Italians, or so and so, or a community of so and so, and then it'd be like, and then when you're there, most of them only speak whatever language whatever place they're from, that's the language they speak. Even though they sometimes speak English, and it sounded like when you go to Santa Ana, there's some places in Santa Ana where all they do is speak Spanish, and sometimes some people here and there will speak English. So they were describing what I grew up in, right? But these were Asians, blacks, and white people, right? So I remember that and dude, when that, I would think it was 19, right? So I'm learning more about the world. I'm learning about myself, and I'm just trying to become the best version that I can.
But real quick, also growing up in the 90s, it's you hear illegal immigration, and all you think of is Mexicans, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's still true to this day for some people.
Well, yeah.
So besides those things, those big major events like racism, I didn't really experience it, right? And sometimes some people didn't like me. I can tell they didn't like me, and it could be because they didn't like me for whatever reason. But I never felt like, oh, they don't like me because I'm Mexican.
Yeah.
Were there some? But the thing is, it's and because it's happened to me enough times that I can't say 100%, but just about 99.9% sure they don't like me because I'm brown. Because that's happened to me a lot. I grew up with major racism. Like I remember in elementary being called beaner from some of the white kids. And then I remember my vice principal telling me that, calling me a beaner, told me that I was never going to amount to anything. And some of the listeners might be like, yeah, because you were a gang member. No. This was even before I was a gang member.
Yeah.
I was a skater.
Yeah.
Right. And people think they see skateboarding now. They're like, oh, it's in the Olympics. You got the X Games. Back then, dude, you were looked down upon if you were a skater.
A fucking misfit. Yeah.
Yeah, you were
a street kid. Yeah.
Yeah, you were the fucking scum. Like, come on, we had shirts that said skateboarding is not a crime because that's how much of a thing it was that you were just looked down upon. And then I would think about that vice principal. She must have been like in her fucking 60s, right? So think about what era she grew up in, right? So she's dead. But that energy still lives. And it still lives because fast forward now to when I got out of the military, right? I'm training for a fight. I'm getting ready for a fight. My brother's with me. He's training for a fight. We had a hard session, right? We're all sweaty. We're driving back home, and I get pulled over. And most people know where I live. And if you don't know, I live in Fountain Valley, right?
A nice place to live.
Yeah. I get pulled over and my brother's fucking nervous. I grew up right physically, mentally abused. So of course when you go through that stuff, you have some shit, right? And the military helped me work through that stuff out.
Yeah. My
brother didn't go in the military. And so he hasn't gone to work through some of this stuff. And
he's a lot younger too, right?
Yeah, he's a lot younger.
Yeah.
So when we get pulled over, and by the way, the cops came. They came in. The way they approached the situation, it was two cops. They were hot and heavy, guns, hands on the guns and everything. And I can tell. And I was just like, fuck. Dude.
Were they overweight?
No.
All right.
And my brother looks like he's got fucking 20 kilos in the trunk, right? So they're like, hey, we, and I know the game, man. I have friends who are cops. I have family members who are cops, you know.
Hey, why are you so fidgety?
Yeah, they started off with like this car match a description of something that happened at a KFC, and I remember thinking like, no, it didn't. Because at the time, what I had was a 1990 E30. These E30s aren't fucking driving around left and right here. They're just not, So I just played along with it. I was like, no, we just got done training, and he can see us at this point because they're on us, right? I'm fucking sweaty, like
gym bags,
my
and
brother's sweaty,
pads.
right?
Yeah.
So they're like, "Oh, where'd you guys come from?" I was like, "We just got done training. You know, we both training for a fight coming up, and we trained at a classic fight team." And he's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Let me see your ID," and then I give him my ID, and then again, my brother looks like he's got fucking kilos in the trunk, right? He's fucking nervous. And not to mention, my brother isn't born here. I'm born here, but my brother's not born here. And some people might get that story confused. Like, how is it that you're the older brother and born here, but your younger brother isn't? Well, my mom got homesick and decided to move back to Mexico. So me being a U.S. citizen, then went to school in Mexico for a bit. But then that's where my brother was born.
Yeah.
So then we fucking had to... I was a child and the only one born here, so then I still had to not illegally or however way you want to phrase it, but I had to be smuggled back into this country along with my brothers and sisters who were not citizens and my mom. So he's nervous, right? And they're like, "Oh, where's your ID?" And he doesn't have one. He doesn't have one because he's not born here.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, where do you live?" And I'm like, "Right here." And he's like, "Where?" And I was like, because we had just got pulled over basically in front of my house, and I was like, the only house on that street with an American flag in the front. And he goes, and by now all my neighbors are watching. This is when I first moved into this community, and I live in a community that's predominantly white and Asian. So backup comes. Another car comes, right? There's already 2 cops on us, and then another cop comes. And then by this time, I can already see all my neighbors looking through their windows and just out on the sidewalk, you know, walking.
Some commotion going on.
So I'm like, fuck, like these...
With the new neighbor.
Yeah. And I know the deal, man. Like, I'm younger than most of my neighbors. I'm brown. And I'm like, fuck, dude, like, this is not a good look, right? I just moved in here. So then this other cop comes, and this fucking jacked cop comes, and he's like, you know, by this point, I already told the cop, like, "Hey, man, like, I was in the military. You know, I worked my shit out through the military. My brother hasn't. This is why he looks like he's fucking got bodies and kilos in the trunk."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay." And I felt like the cop who I was talking with realized the situation. But around that same time, the third cop came. And he's like, pull him out of the car. And he doesn't have an ID. Take pictures of him. And then take pictures of that guy too. So in front of my neighbors, I have to take off my shirt. My brother's got to take off his shirt. We got to do the face forward, face left, face right. Even though I showed them my ID, even though they can see where I live, even though I told them I was in the military, like, I have that card to play. And in that situation, it didn't fucking help me. I was still treated that way. And that could have been a race thing, or that just could have been a cop on a power trip, but it could have been a combination of both, right? And then fast forward to one day we're training, I think it was LA or OC Sheriff's. I can't remember. But I come back home and I'm like, tell my wife, like, you know what, I'm gonna get some pizza for us, you know. And as I'm on the way to walk into it, a car full of people is like, "Fucking Beaner, fuck you." And I was just thinking, like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, so when people ask me about my experience in the military, my experience now out, and then how my experience was before, I'm open about it, right? But I just never really talked about it. So, you know, that these people, like that vice principal, she's dead. But like I said, that energy is alive. It's alive, and I still have to deal with it, right? Some people have similar upbringing. Some people might be listening to this and be like, "Damn, I didn't know. I didn't know that was still a thing." You know, so I mean, I lost my train of thought of this, like, or the direction, but yeah. So I feel like most people who own these companies don't want to talk about this because their main customer is white people, right? Yeah. But I was just listening, and it was funny because I was just listening to Andy Stump, and Andy Stump had Remy. Remy's he's, for people who don't know, he's a black seal, and he was talking about race, and he's talking about this and he's talking about that, and it just happened today. Like, I was listening to this episode today. I think they dropped it today too, and I remember thinking, like, dude, I was just about to say today that no one talks about it, right? But then I hear them, and I'm like, dude, I'm glad Andy had that conversation with Remy. I'm glad Remy he's very articulate. So he it wasn't just saying 2-3 words. He was actually explaining the process and the way of thinking things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't him being racist, and same with Andy. It wasn't Andy being racist. It was just him, stating facts and using their brains to make an educated guess on why things are happening and where things are happening or where things are going to go or how do you prevent this. And I feel like more people need to have this conversation within the community, right? Because I have these conversations with people that are in the community, but they don't comment about it. They don't make a post about it. They don't make a video about it. And it's just kind of just been ignored, right? So I can either talk about this or not talk about it. But just like how I did for psychedelics, when I first started talking about psychedelic therapy, I got so many DMs of saying, like, dude, that's wrong. I shouldn't have been doing that. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you. And this is for people within the community.
Yeah.
Right? And then same when I got out and I started sharing, like, hey, man, I was I won a war, was a ranger, I did all this and that. And then, when I got out, there was like the honeymoon phase, and then there was the transition for me was a struggle. And then, and then people were I got comments about that. And eventually now I feel like more than ever that's accepted. Like, hey, people transition and they have a tough time. But when I did that, in 2016, dude, I got a bunch of fucking shit. When I talked about the psychedelic therapy, I got a bunch of shit. And then now there's people on podcasts who have other veterans on, and they're talking about it, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah.
So Andy and Remy talked about race, and you and I talked about this that I need to talk about it because people DM me all the time, and they're scared one way or another reason to talk about it, right? And does racism exist? It does. It still does. And it bums me out when I within the community, I see people act like it doesn't exist. Like it's not a thing. Right? The vast majority of people and predominantly in these areas, these sections, are white people. So if there is racism, which there is, just by the numbers, who's the majority of the group doing it? Right?
Yeah.
And it's just by a number thing. If you go to somewhere where there's 100 Mexicans and there's only 2 white dudes, well, just going off the numbers, who do you think is probably going to be doing the most racist stuff there? Right? The Mexican group. But then we're not talking about groups that are run by Mexicans. We're talking about groups that are predominantly have high numbers of white people. So there is racism, and it bugs me that dudes don't want to talk about their experiences. Or dudes act like it's not a real thing. But I've talked to with dudes, and I'm not the only one. They have experienced racism within the military. But with that being said, that's not everybody. You hear me tell the story of the kids in elementary, calling me beaner and stuff like that, and me going home and asking my mom, like, what does beaner mean? And my vice principal calling me a beaner. The dude in my unit saying, "Yo, for a Mexican, you're not that bad." The cop being how he was. When I was going to go get pizza, that there's a car full of white people with dudes saying, "Fuck you, beaner." But at the and at the same time, and I feel like I have to talk about this part, and I'm just gonna talk about one part, because if I really want to be a member the community, a community leader, right? I gotta talk about both. And the reality is that not all white people are racist.
Right.
I've had a lot of help from white people. Growing up at the same school where kids were like, "Yo, dude, what's up, Beaner?" I remember I had a 3rd grade teacher named Miss Weichel, and she knew my brother and my sister and us. All of us were poor. She would bring us food, like every 2-3 weeks. I mean, it wasn't steak, but she would bring us food.
There were meals, yeah.
And I remember one time she brought us like spaghetti, and dude, just to show you how poor we were, like right then and there, we opened the Tupperware, and my brothers and sisters, we started eating it. We didn't even reheat it. We just ate it, right? In the military, all my mentors, the vast majority of them are white dudes.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm out, and one of my mentors, is Michael Dowd. He's been like a big brother to me, and so I can't. I see that there's some people who are trying to be leaders within the Chicano community, right? And this next part, people might not agree with, but the numbers are still going to be there. For example, what I mean, Mexicans are either going to be the larger population sooner or later, and if you don't agree with that, then at least agree with the fact that there's a lot of us.
Yeah. In
California, now, if I'm unless I'm wrong, now the majority of people are Mexicans.
Yeah.
Right. And I was vaguely searching this. Right. The fastest growing population within the United States, each population has gotten bigger, but the one that's growing the fastest and is going to surpass the biggest group, which is white people, is Mexicans. And so that's why when people are like, "Yo, where did the minority?" Yeah, we used to be not only the minority of we weren't white, but also in numbers. But that's literally changing. It's going to be hard to say, especially in California. We can't say that we're the minority, like as in people, because we're not. And now even in this country, we may not have that many numbers, but sooner or later by numbers, we're not going to be the minority. And so the Chicano community, that whole group needs leaders, right? And I want to be a leader. So I think it's very important for me to share my experiences. Like, hey, man, I agree with you that saying that, there is this hatred that you're experiencing, we're experiencing. I'm tired of seeing street vendors get beat up, get robbed, right? And a lot of them are illegal, so they're fucking scared to go to the cops. And these people know it. These people know that these vendors, some of them might be illegal or are too poor to even if they are legal, are too poor to go through the system and get a lawyer or get whatever. So, and they don't want the hassle, right?
Yeah.
So I see groups that highlight, and it seems like they're sometimes only highlighting those events. And I think it's a disservice to the younger population, because just like how I grew up seeing that, hey, it's only Mexicans crossing the border, it's only Mexicans doing these crimes.
Yeah.
No one else does crimes, it's only Mexicans. Saying that and having a page or whatever that's saying, hey, all these things are being done to us, and that's all you're sharing, and then the youth is only seeing that, they're going to believe that that's what is only out there, so they're going to have this hatred towards white people, and that's not the case, man.
Right.
So I think it's important. I'm not saying don't talk about, like, for example, vendors getting fucked up and getting their money taken. But when you keep doing that and you go towards attacking the cops, then you're painting this picture like the white people are the enemy. All white people are the enemy. All cops are the enemy. Not all cops. I think there's bad cops, right? And I've talked to enough cops that they see it, that there's bad cops, and and there's pages out there that and people don't know this, that highlight the importance of training.
Yeah.
The body, the mind, the skills, everything. So you're not a fucking shit cop. And then them going over and saying like, yo, dude, the standards need to be higher. right? And I feel like I am the bridge between worlds, because when I talk about these things to other people, a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you not know that? But then I think about it, of course you don't know that. You have your own experience, right? And you see your life through these eyes, and you just haven't, just because you don't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? You just haven't seen it yet. So, for example, I was talking to my friends, and I was like, "Yo, dude, we were talking about race again. Another moment when we're talking about race, but no one wants to talk about it online because they're, especially company owners or people who they're like, oh, if I talk about it, maybe I won't get sponsored by this one company,
canceled, yeah,
or I'll get canceled or whatever, right? But it's like we were talking about race, and I was telling my friend, I was like, dude, you know, when I go to Mexico, I'm the gringo, and he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, there's Mexicans that don't want me there. Mm-hmm. And they're like, why? They're like, because I was born here. No matter what I do, they will never accept me. Mm-hmm. Right? That's why we have that saying, and some people, well, if you don't speak Spanish, you've never heard it, but it's basically translate to not from here, not from there, right? Mm-hmm. Or vice versa. And what it basically means to translate to is that there's people, Mexicans, who feel like they don't belong here. And then if they go to Mexico, they're not wanted there.
Right.
So you're not from here, you're not from there, or you're not wanted here, or you're not wanted there. So you're kind of like, sometimes, and you can't help it, feel like a man or woman without a land.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like the more we talk about it, maybe people can get a picture. Maybe not change their whole view on things, but just to let them know, right? Because no 30-second video should change your mind. No meme should change your mind.
Yeah.
It should be people's worth and by their actions and stuff like that.
The experience, yeah.
And I'm just sharing the experience, right? And again, that's my experience. There might be some dudes who are like, yo, man, I've never experienced racism, or I've never seen it. And I'm talking about maybe some white dudes like, I've never seen anybody. None of my friends have been racist. So I don't know. That's fine. That's cool. But I'm telling you, it's there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that Mexicans need leaders. I want to be a leader. I'm not going to say that the white man is the fucking devil, but I'm not going to say like they're not perfect, right? I don't think I need to be a politician to be a leader. I don't think I need to praise cops 24/7 because the reality is there's bad cops. But I'm not going to fucking start a page and just shit on cops and only load up the videos that shit on cops' bad actions, because that's not everything, you know?
No, yeah.
Goddamn. Yeah, man, it's a lot about race, right? People don't. But why do you think people don't want to talk about it?
Now, you say one thing about one skin color or one ethnic group or religious group, and it's the opposing side's going to come after you. Like we saw that with a professional baseball team and wanting to, do something for a pride night. And then now they want to do something for a religious night and, And
I'm not saying that it's only white people being racist, because that's not, I know by now someone's like, yeah, but I've seen Mexicans being racist or blacks being racist. Yes, that they themselves, there are people in there that are super racist. On the podcast, I've talked about it that I remember growing up, a relative or two would be like, hey, you better marry Catholic and you better marry 100% Mexican. And if I would have listened to them, I never would have married my wife. I wouldn't have had the kids that I have, because my wife's not 100% Mexican, right? She's half Italian, half Mexican, and she's not Catholic, right? So these people who told me that they teach me other things that are very important, and I took, right, and the things that I actually use in my life. Yes, I was smart enough to know, like, yeah, but that one part that you're kind of trying to guide me with, it doesn't sound right, right? So I'm not gonna do it, right? So yes, have I seen Mexican be racist? Yes, blacks be racist, yeah, but we're talking about specific things, military, law enforcement, and my experience, right?
Yeah.
Where, and the vast majority are white people. So that's of course that's what we're going to be talking about. But if you want to talk about, more Mexicans being racist, yeah, when I've experienced it is when I go to Mexico, man. You can kind of get that vibe, like you're not welcome, and sometimes I feel like I've always been pretty good at putting myself in other people's shoes. And you know what, man? If I was born in Mexico and these fucking Mexican Americans came, and there's some, because I've seen it, right, who act like they're better than you, right, who treat you lower, then of course every time you see a Mexican American, you're gonna be like, man, fuck them.
Yeah. Right?
They think they're fucking better than me. Because, dude, I've seen it. I've seen it where they act like they are we're being born and raised in Mexico, you go through certain things, right? So I get that part. And then being born in the U.S. as Mexican, of course you don't have to deal with cartels and all that. Or live in that type of, environment with like no money. The government doesn't really support you. So there's those differences. But at the end of the day, I feel like we're still the same people.
It's hard that people don't realize that. Like, we're still people.
Yeah.
And with a lot of other races, it's a shame to see why or Raza shitting on Raza online, right?
Yeah.
Or fucking rappers killing rappers. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, this isn't helping the overall picture, you know?
Bingo, right there. That's the thing. It's not helping at all, right? So I feel like this should help. At least I hope so. At least it
spark or a flick of the switch or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because one, I feel like the community more needs to talk about it. Andy and Remy talked about it. Right, they talked about it more in of course, and again, look, I'm Mexican, so I'm talking about it in the perspective of being Mexican. I'm not gonna act like I know what it is to be black in America or Asian in America. I don't know that, right? I can see. I'm not blind. I see certain things, right? But at the end of the day, I can't. That's not where my focus is at. That's not where my energy is at, because my energy and what I see is what I live in I live in Fountain Valley, but like 2 lights over, it's Santa Ana, right? But my family and my wife's family are in Santa Ana, Garden Grove, and up in LA. So that's what I see. That's what I know, right? So that's what I'm speaking about. But Andy and Remy talked about it in the eyes of what. And I didn't finish the whole podcast, but basically what's happening in Chicago, and all the violence and all that stuff. And I think those conversations help. Well, is there going to be people that hear that podcast or this podcast and they get a little snippet and they're going to use that and say like, "See, told you." Like, I don't doubt it. Someone's going to take what I said and be like, "That dude's a racist."
Chop it up and make a clip that gives zero context and a false narrative.
100%. It's going to happen. My actions say different. Like, dude, I gave a kidney up, Benji's half white, right? Larissa, I believe she's half also, so like, I'm not racist. The vast majority of my closest friends are white.
It's a pretty mixed bag.
Yeah, we got a pretty good mixed bag, right? And we have these conversations when we're kicking it, but people just don't want to have the conversations online, right? So,
and it's for certain things. I see certain comments in there, you know, like I see political comments in comment sections, and I'll scroll down and read some comments on something political, and I'm like, holy shit, like that's every different race is almost being represented, and they're not for what you think they would be for.
What do you mean?
Know what I'm saying? Like, so in a political, like the economic situation we're in right now, right? And a lot of people that are different skin color, black, brown, are commenting saying, man, it was better when that orange dude was our president.
Yeah.
You know? So
about about politics, man, I've always said, and I'm a big fucking believer in what has, not that it doesn't. I'm not saying that it doesn't, and some fucking idiot's gonna be like, it fucking does. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think what has more of an effect on your life is what you do and you fail to do on a daily basis. I had success during the Obama era. Did Obama fucking give me that success? No.
You went out and earned it.
I had a bunch of bad shit happen.
Yeah.
You know, during the Obama time. Did he have something to fucking do with it? No. Same when the Orange Man came around. That fucking when Trump was president, I had that was a good time for me as a entrepreneur. Did he give me that success? No, he fucking did it, right? And then there was downs while being an entrepreneur during that time, and he didn't fucking cause it, right? It was the things that I did and failed to do on a daily basis that you know. So I feel like unfortunately we put too much emphasis on it. It bums me out when I see dudes who I served with on Facebook throw up a meme or something that's like borderline racist or borderline against a religion or something, and I'm like, bro, like we went to war together, and we saw certain things, and so I know you know different. I know, like if a civilian, and we'll just keep it at Trump, right? The Orange Man. Well, if a civilian goes through life and sees Trump as, you know what, dude, I like how he talks. I like that he became wealthy. He seems like he's smart. He seems like he's a good leader.
And he's for America first.
So fuck yeah, I'm gonna go for him. Right? So if this civilian at this point in his life, if that is the best version of a leader he's ever seen, okay, cool. Like, I feel bad for them, but in the special operations community, not only are some of these leaders amazing, but some of your own peers are amazing, right? Better than any of these politicians. So when I look at the paper and I have option A, who's shit, and option B, that's shiny but shit. It's like, no, I know better. This isn't the best the country has to offer. It's the best the system has offered us. So when I see agenda. People who I deployed with praise these people like this is the best leadership, the best everything, and I'm like, bro, I know you've seen better. So like, how can you, out of all the things that you can spend your time and energy, why do you want to endorse this and that? Like you, and I feel bad. Because I'm like, damn, dude, there's a lot of there's veterans. That's
what we're narrowed down to.
Yeah.
And it's narrowed down our thinking.
Yeah. You know, we there's veterans killing themselves. There's our local communities, you know, that need help, you know, especially if it's a low income community. There's all this stuff that you can do, but you're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna spend time and energy promoting this person, arguing with people about this person, backing them up online, and I'm just like, fuck, dude, it bums me out. That's why I stay away from all of it. I stay away from all of it. When we're kind of talking about it, like, yo, what about Kennedy? You know, as I say, I stay away from all of it. I heard him on Rogan. And you know, dude, by the way, I've never voted for. I remember in 08. Yeah, 08 was the first time I could vote. And I remember thinking, they're like, oh, I was getting ready for deployment. And I remember thinking, you know, it's going to be my first time at war. My time and focus is on this deployment. And they're like, hey, if I remember correctly, I think during the election we were going to be overseas. They're like, do you want to cast in your vote? There's like an option when you're in the military that you can do it late or like just put it in sooner. I can't remember.
Absentee or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, no. Like first I was like, no, I want to focus on going to war, right? Because nobody in office is gonna take the bullet for me. No one's in the office is gonna be right next to me.
Yeah,
they're not, right? But I remember thinking like, oh shit, dude, like there's a black dude running not that long ago that were slaves. Fuck, look what this country can do. Best country in the world. Fast forward to the next election. Now I'm not just going to war again, but I'm going to war and be in charge of men. And I'm like, fuck, I got to focus on this. I want to focus on this. And they're like, oh, you want to do your absentee ballot? And I'm like, no. And then I look again at who's running, and I'm like, oh, fuck, he's going to run again. Against, I can't remember who it was against, but I was like, no, I've never tracked either person's politics. They both don't talk like normal human beings. They have a way of talking to you, and we, as people, we accept it. For the longest time, we've accepted that. Like, oh yeah, you talk to me like that. That's not normal talk. Like no one talks.
Giving a great speech.
Yeah, no. If you ran to somebody and they started talking to you like that, you're like, dude, why are you talking like that? Talk like a normal person. So then I got out, and then by the 2016, it's Trump and Hillary, and I remember thinking, isn't that dude from The Bachelor? And then it wasn't The Bachelor, it was
his own show called The Apprentice.
Yeah, The Apprentice. And then Hillary, I remember thinking like, I don't know, like it'd be first lady. I'm like, okay, you're running on that. That's kind of like not running just on being the first lady, but throwing that up like, well, you can't just, hey, I'm going to be the first, so do it.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking like, you've been into politics for a long time. I don't see major changes on your name that like, you look, I did A, B, and C, and I've been in it for this long.
Yeah.
In the military, you could not be in for X amount of years, not have anything great, and be like, you know what? Put me at the top. Like, that's not how it works.
Give me the odds.
Yeah, you're like, but your track record, there's like, so I was like, no, I'm staying away. But now, I feel like as much as I want to stay away, you just can't stay away anymore.
Yeah.
Because the situation has gotten so bad with the COVID lockdowns and all this stuff and that and this and that and the things that they were saying that if you said A, B, and C, like you were the worst of the worst, and then a lot of this stuff now it's coming out that it's true, or somewhat true, right? And by what I mean by somewhat is that parts of it, and because this is one thing about conspiracy theories that I fucking hate, dude. I hate it because I'll see this meme. It's like, you know, oh, this conspiracy came out to be true, and I think you've seen it too, right? Like
probably so.
It like this one is true. We're like 5 for 5, or we're like 6 for 6, or 10 for 10, right? On conspiracies that are true.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. Yeah, 10 things that people said are now true, but then there's like a billion
of others
that aren't true.
Yeah.
So like, and I hate that. Like, and within my own people that I know they're like that, and I'm like, you know, so and so was true. I told you, and I'm like, bro, but I've also heard you say like 50 other shit that's not true. So like, and how can you walk around with like, I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about the other 50 things that are true? It's just this thing is true, and then or when people share like their hero, and I'm like, bro, that person has said a lot of shit. like Alex Jones. I've heard him say a lot of crazy shit.
Some crazy shit.
And some of it has turned out to be true. But I'm like, how can you raise him up so high when other stuff was wrong?
Yeah.
Like, I can't do. I've never been like that. I've never been like, I'm gonna say 50 fucking things, and then that one thing is true, and then I'm gonna walk around and be like, see, I fucking told you, I'm right. I'm right because I said I'm right, and that one thing that I said was right, but the other 49 are not true.
That's like having a record of being fucking 1-49. You won one fight, but you lost 49 others.
And then you're like, I'm the champ. And that's how I feel how these people are with conspiracy theories, right? I don't even know where I was going with this. Oh, Kennedy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the conspiracy theories. I just feel like they left us no option. That's what it was. I feel like they left us no option, that we have to get involved even more, right? And I'm not trying to be a politician. I don't want to be a politician. But I think I need to get more involved within the community and with calling things out, because that I don't think it's right, man. I don't think it's right when I see dudes especially dudes from the special operations community.
Yeah.
And I know it's because they relate so much to this party and it's their identity. So if you attack the party, you're attacking their identity. You're attacking them.
Right.
And it bugs me when they endorse or say these things, and I'm like, bro, you should know better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying conventional dudes don't have great leadership. They do. There's some great leaders in there. But like, you being in the special operations community, like, I know you saw good leadership.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the best. And you know this.
Yeah.
So what makes it in you to be like, I'm just going to ignore all the great men and peers I've been with, and I'm going to publicly say this is the best.
Mm-hmm.
That's so fucked up, dude. That makes me sad all the time.
Everything's overly processed. You know, going from advertising in commercials, in everything we see in commercials, and then knowing what that product actually is and what's in that product, right? Whether it has to do with food, cosmetics, skincare, and knowing that, like, no, dude, why the fuck would you put that on your skin?
Yeah.
So then why the fuck would you put that in a higher power?
Have you seen any of Kennedy stuff?
Just some of the clips.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't even know he existed.
Yeah.
Until he was on Rogan, which was what, 2 months ago?
About, yeah. Pretty recent.
I knew what the Kennedy was.
You knew the last name.
Was murked.
Yeah.
And I knew his brother was murked, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea that fucking Robert existed.
Yeah.
Right? That's to show you how much I've paid attention to anything related to politics. Like, of course, I'm not blind, so I see some things. But I just don't dive into it because I see people around me get so invested and it fucks with their day. And I'm like, bro, you have a family. You have friends, like, in front of you, and you are just putting so much time and energy.
You live in a beautiful city. You have this and that. Yeah. Like, don't get so...
I'm not saying ignore it, but I'm like, bro, when on your dying fucking bed, do you want to be like, fuck, man, I wish I would have complained more about this other party and this other politician instead of actually taking action. I wish I would have commented more on this politician post or whatever instead of taking action. Instead of not even just action towards the thing I'm complaining about, but like taking action and like playing with my kids, you know, or meeting a nice lady if you're not married, you know, fucking living life, you know, kicking it with the homies or something. So anyways, I didn't know Kennedy existed until I heard him on Rogan, and I remember I even passed Kennedy's episode because I was like, I didn't even know.
Sounds like politics.
Yeah, it sounds like politics. I don't want to fucking hear it.
Yeah.
But then Rogan kept bringing it up in his other podcast episodes, and I was like, okay, let me listen to it. And for a lot of people that don't know, man, I I'm like 2 classes, and I tried to finish these 2 classes to earn my bachelor's, but work has just it's been good. Yeah. And then it's been good enough that it took me 2 semesters to try to finish these 2 classes. So I never did, because I would make it up to like 9 weeks in the semester and be like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'd rather do this stuff for work. But during that time, during COVID, bro, I was trying to finish my degree to become a registered dietitian, right? And it's very important because I had no idea the classes that I was going to be taking. Microbiology, organic chemistry, biochemistry, human anatomy, other biology classes. So when I heard Candy's episode, a lot of I could follow it because I had taken a lot of these classes were the stuff that he's talking about, right? And he was making some good points. Some of the stuff that he wasn't talking about, I don't know so much, but what's interesting is when I saw the media attack him for some things, and I'm like, but some of the stuff that he's saying is true. Yeah. Right? So how can you portray him a certain way? Like, he's not lying. Yeah. It's because he just doesn't match your ideology. Right?
You're going with the agenda that you agreed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you sold yourself out to.
Yeah. So if he's running, and I'm not sure if Trump's going to run again, and Biden's just too old, dude. He's too old. Like, it has, and again, man, I'm not left or right, you know, but if Biden's so old, if he was your grandpa, you'd be like, grandpa's not driving. Yeah. He's not driving. And like Analia's, my wife, Analia's grandpa, I remember was younger than Biden. And I remember thinking, they were trying to take his keys away. They're like, yo, you're not driving anymore. You're scratching. When you back up from the driveway, you're scratching the other cars. And he was so persistent to keep fucking driving. And then eventually he drove into a fucking liquor store.
It's a power thing.
Right?
They don't want to give up the power,
so he felt like he was losing some of his independence. Yeah. I get it, right? We didn't want this man, to drive on the fucking freeway. So when I see Biden, it reminds me a lot of Analia's grandpa.
We don't want this man running the fucking country.
And I'm like, what is going on? This is what happens. I ignored politics all this time. And then once I'm finally somewhat paying attention, I'm like, we got this old timer in here who just keeps stumbling his words, not once or twice, and I'm like, bro, I would have let him drive. Yeah. I would love to see him drive, actually. Like, I would love to somebody give him the keys to a car and just be like, yo, man, drive from San Diego to LA. Let's just see what happens. I don't think he can make it.
I don't think so either. And it's that car is gonna have some fucking dents in it.
So we're like, dude, So I think if the choices are right now between them 3, I'm gonna go Kennedy. I gotta go Kennedy. Yeah. Or I'm gonna do what I did last time and see if I can write in Joe Rogan. And get David Goggins.
I don't know about that. I think we need motherfucking Deshaun Strickland in there.
Deshaun Strickland, dude. Strickland is the man. Dude, I can't wait. I can't wait to, see him again. That dude is fucking hilarious. For people who don't know, Sean Strickland.
Motherfucking Deshaun.
Yeah, Deshaun is an MMA fighter. He's kind of out there. And this is another reason why I felt like I needed to do this episode, and I hope other people do this episode, types of episodes, right? Strickland went on Rogan, and he could have talked about MMA. He could have talked about things to help him,
launch his career.
And what did he talk about, dude? He talked about how he grew up being racist, right? And the struggles that he had in life. And I feel like that hopefully helped
the values he lacked. Yeah,
the values he lacked. And I'm like, damn, dude, like if more people were like that, because he's like, yeah, I used to be racist, so I know how people think like that, right? I used to be like this and that, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I wish more people were like that. I like that episode, right?
Yeah.
More people. Again, he could have not talked about it and just made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But he's like, whether he did it on purpose or not to help other people, I think he did. I think he talked about racism and how he used to be racist, and racist situations that now he's had.
Yeah.
Right. He talked about that one black guy who's racist and doesn't like white people.
Yeah.
So I feel like these conversations need to be,
out
happening.
there.
Yeah.
It's only going to help us.
Did you experience racism growing up?
I was born in L.A. County, in a city in L.A.
So what is that?
And when I was, the school I was in, the elementary school before I moved to Orange County, was predominantly, it was white, black, and Mexican. And then I moved to Orange County, and it was like just white and Mexican. Mm-hmm. And the percentage of whites were a lot higher than the percentage of Mexican or brown, right? Mm-hmm. It was super different. Yeah. It was, there was definitely some, I got pushed back, Mm-hmm. For like, and I'm half too, so I'm half Italian, half Mexican. I'm Native American.
Who's the half?
So my dad's Mexican, Native American. My mom's Italian, and some like mixed European too. Mm-hmm. So it's different, and there are two different households, right? Two different households, two different political affiliations. It's just two different worlds growing up, right? And even now, going back and forth from hometown to Orange County, it's still different, And I remember hearing things in quotes growing up over here in Orange County than I remember in LA County. You know? Like I remember hearing Beaner or stinky Mexicans.
Yeah.
Or whatever else.
Wetback.
Yeah. You know? And it's like, whoa. But over there in LA, I was more of a white kid. So I kind of didn't fit in fully over there. And then coming over here, I really didn't fit in either. So it was just kind of this weird, like, who am I in the sense of like, what's going to make me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it was super different. Yeah. Did I have a lot more privileges than other brown kids? Absolutely. Did I have, a lot of privileges as other white kids? No. But it was a struggle, and being from a broken home too, his parents split, and again, hearing certain things in certain side of the family and certain things in other side of the family, just like this fucking tug of war. Yeah. But, I've definitely experienced, pushback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From both communities?
From both. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Dude, I never thought about it. What's it like for people who are half? Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like us Mexicans that we either sometimes not wanted here, not wanted over there, or you get love from here, and then you do get some love from there.
And I mean, I have to remember, I can remember this first, before I remember Spanish. Excuse me. Spanish wasn't my first language hearing outside of English. It was Italian, because my great-grandparents were Italian.
Oh, okay.
So that was the first language besides English I remember hearing and learning.
Yeah.
Before Spanish. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
So, they came over in the 40s. Ellis Island, New York.
Dude, I just got done rereading some of the chapters off this book. I forgot I think it's called like 97th Orchard or 5th Orchard or something, but it's a book that's basically about Ellis Island and the families that were coming around, and it's mostly about Italians, Russian, German, all the Europeans, right? That were coming over. And I wouldn't, if I don't want to fucking butcher this, but and there's a waiting area there, right, before you're officially like in the country or processed or whatever they were doing. That on the walls in this waiting area, it's not like a waiting room. I'm talking about like you live there, right? Stay there for a bit. People didn't believe that the food they were eating was free. That they had to put signs everywhere in Italian and so on that, hey, this food is free. There was families coming over and waiting and thinking, oh, I don't have money to pay for this food. And they're like, no, it's free. They didn't believe it. That's how that's how big of a problem it was, that people weren't believing that it was free or didn't know that it was free, that they had to put signs everywhere in every language, like, hey, this food is free. It's for you. Yeah. Welcome to the country. Right? So do I think and hearing that, man, and you know what, finding their trying to, and the book also goes more about it's more about how each culture try to keep its culture, right? Like I'm talking about like even the animals that they ate during their main meals. They were the first floor in the apartment complex was like the farm, right? And ex lady made this special cabbage soup that was traditional in this area and that area. They were just trying to preserve their identity, right? Yes, they were conforming to America, but they were trying to keep that. And I don't think that it's bad to try to keep some of that. Yeah. But there's, going back to the race thing, there's things that I even sometimes question that I don't understand, right? Like, for example, if you try to show that you love Mexico, I don't think you're saying that you hate America. Yeah. I don't think, and then same, if you say you love America, that's not saying that you hate Mexico. Right. Or that what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to acknowledge where you're from. I don't think for some people out there, a lot of there are pretty big groups. They talk and make you feel like if you have to pick, and I don't think you have to pick. I think you can love both. Right? Absolutely. Especially if it's in your bloodline. Yeah. It's where your ancestors are from. Yeah. Right? Do you think people struggling with identity and knowing who they are or they think they are or who they think they want to be plays into their racism? I think so. Yeah. I think so because I did fight. I battled with like what somebody asked me like, oh, what do you call yourself? And it was funny because I think I just entered the military, right? So I remember thinking like, what do you mean what I call myself? Like, oh, do you call yourself Mexican American or just American or just Mexican? And I was like, dude, I've never thought about it like besides like school stuff, right? When you're like, hey, are you Hispanic? Well, yeah, of course I'm Hispanic. I'm not going to put I'm black. I'm not going to put what is it, Islander? Yeah, Pacific Islander. Yeah, Pacific Islander. Yeah. I'm from California, fucking, it says Hispanic. Well, I speak Spanish, so. And then even then growing up, it kind of confused me because you have like Hispanic, Latino, Chicano, Mexican American, or just Mexican. So I'm like, there's all these fucking names. So I never really, you got to choose out of 6, and you're not the other 5. So you're like, I guess I'm this. Yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, fuck, yeah, what am I? So I remember, when I just entered the military is when I got asked that. And I remember fighting internally, like, what do I call myself if I had to pick one thing, right? I love America. I'm in the fucking military. I got the flag on my shoulder. I'm going to war for this, but like, I love Mexico. And that's where all my family members first came from. I wasn't born there, but they were all born there. So growing up, they basically just like in the book, that when they came over and they were trying to preserve the culture, well, they all came over and they were trying to preserve their culture. I mean, obviously, it was a lot easier than being in SoCal, right? So that's what I grew up in. So, you know, I did fight with it, and then eventually I was like, yo, look, man. First I was like, well, I'm Mexican American, right? And then I'd be like, well, I'm just Mexican. And then you come out here and then you start learning the history of Chicano. Like, so now more than ever than lately, I'm like, dude, if I had to say, well, I'm a Chicano, right? Because is there such a word, like if you're Irish or Italian, and then but in their situation like mine, if all your family members were from Italy and then you came over, is there a word like that?
I mean, that I can only think of just saying Italian American, just
Italian,
like
right.
Mexican American or Chinese American or Japanese American. Yeah.
I think a lot of people do fight with that idea.
Yeah. Because you're not trying to turn your back on where your ancestors came from to where you are, and nor are you trying to shit on the country you live and love. And it's offered so much for you.
Hold on, let's see. Work related. You're not supposed to have your phone on, but it says work related. It says, hey. Let's see.
Wheeling and dealing.
Yep. Getting ready to go to Virginia.
The Hero Games.
Yeah, go to the Hero Games. Change the subject. Go to the Hero Games, man. Hero Games, for a lot of people who don't know, and by the time this comes out, it'll probably already happened. But they have a big event every year where they bring over a family, right, to this little town, and they do like a selection style, like a special forces selection style team events, right? And then you raise money, and the money goes towards the family. And because of the Hero Games, when I went there, the homie Rod was killed. And one of his closest friend, if not closest friend, hit me up. He's like, hey, man, I can't go to this thing. It's called the Hero Games. You know, can you go to support, you know, Ronnie, you know? So she's not, obviously it's the Rod and Ronnie were together. Like, you know, so Ronnie's not by herself. And I'm like, fuck, like, I think I was still in school. If I remember correctly, I was still in school. And I was like, and it was kind of like the weekend. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, okay, last minute, I'll get the ticket, whatever. And I go there, and it was a great event. You know, and I could feel like they weren't just there just for a picture. Like they weren't doing the event just to get a picture.
It wasn't about ops.
Yeah. It was about really trying to be there for the family, right? Because Ronnie was there, and it was also, if I remember correctly, Rod's mom was there, and I think the brother was there too. And I'm like, oh man, like these people from the Hero Games clearly show that they care about the families, you know, and all this and that. And I remember thinking, plus the small town is beautiful. I'd never been to a small town before.
Yeah.
Right. And then he's like, hey man, aren't you from SoCal? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, you should go meet up with this company. They helped sponsor the event. It was Thrash and Raid. And then that's how I met Benji, owner of Thrash and Raid. And then that's how I met his wife Larissa and their kids. And then eventually when we became close friends, that whole, hey, she needs a kidney thing came out, and I gave her a kidney. And just to look back like that, you know, the Hero Games were a big reason why I donated that kidney. You know, if I can trip to Virginia, fucking small ass town,
kind of last minute on a whim, and there to support. Yeah.
So long story short, support the Hero Games. They have a big event every summer. I think for the last 5 summers. So you can always donate. You can donate $1. You can donate $5. You know, and you're like, oh well, their event is already gonna pass, but you can. It's never too early to start fundraising for the next event.
Yeah.
Right. Man, that town supports veterans, supports the fallen service members' families, and obviously it takes time and money to do these events. It's only getting bigger and bigger, and I think, if I remember correctly, they told me that their tickets sold out.
Oh wow!
Like a long time ago.
Oh wow!
And they're like, dude, I remember when we first had to like just beg people to come for free.
Yeah.
You know, or like for half off or whatever. You know. And he's like, dude, we're sold out. Fucking, and I was like, that's awesome. Right, but all that takes time and money, so go support Hero Games.
And you never know. Like, you showed up, and look, from showing up, look what happened.
Yeah. I hope I express myself properly.
It's always going to be an ongoing conversation. There's going to be questions. I feel like that you're going to get sent, and that'll give better context and detail to an ongoing open dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I hope so, man. I mean, I'm terrible sometimes at these podcast things, and I mean by terrible, I mean like I think of the way I'm going to express myself, but what actually comes out, and people might think like, dude, you're on podcasts all the time. You should be an expert. No, I'm not. Like, isn't public speaking like the scariest thing or whatever in the world, or
one of them
that people are afraid of?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, not that I'm scared of public speaking, but what I'm saying is like, if public speaking is like one of the scariest things that people are there, then besides scary, you can get nervous, right? You can get, caught up or mixed up. So I hope I got my point out correctly. I hope I did.
And that this is open space and open dialogue for that subject.
Yeah. And I'm willing to sit down and talk with anybody. I'm not going anywhere. I plan to be a leader in this community. I feel like I've done enough work. I'm not even done or finished, but to prove myself that I have good intentions. Plus, there's hours of me speaking out there, so you can get a good sense of who and what I am, and what I'm trying to do, or whatever. But yeah, man, I'm pretty much done with this episode.
All right. Well, on that note, thanks everyone. Good to be back.
Thank you, homie.
All right.